Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the rebranded channel. Above Paranormal is no more. We are now Wolf Paranormal. Like to say a big thank you to Sam before we start. Usual guest. Sam has got her own, obviously, YouTube channel, Life After Life Productions. I believe you've dropped the TV out of it now, Sam.
Yeah, and I have another channel
Yeah,
now as well, which I'm putting a lot of energy into.
you'll
So,
have to give me the link to that one because I've actually got your one channel links on here. It'll pop up shortly, but not your other one. Hi James. Hi Claire. Like to say hello to everybody. Right, tonight we're going to be Sorry,
hello,
Sam. Go on.
hello to everybody, and thanks very much, Brett, for having
You're
me
more
on
than
again.
welcome. I'll just let you know who's in chat, Sam, because I know you can't see it. We've got Anne in. We've got Just Chaos. We've got Simon, Monkey, a Joy, James. We've got Claire from Wisteria Energy Twister, who's forever changing the name of what it's called. But at the moment it's Energy Twister. Right, tonight we're going to be talking about communication with the spirit world or whatever we think it is. Sam is a big advocate, obviously, of ITC, so this is going to be right up her alley tonight. We'll cover things like what we believe we're actually talking to when we are communicating, be that via ITC, Ouija boards, pendulums, whatever. Right, Sam. Would you like to give a quick introduction on what you do regarding ITC? Because I know you're specialising in it now, and what you believe you are actually communicating with when you're doing it.
Yeah, at the moment I am doing a lot of Spirit Box sessions with a device called the RTC box, which is here. It looks like a Joe's box, and that was built by a guy called Rob Hernandez, who is a works in the filming industry. His friend is in the audio industry, and both are interested in ITC. And at the moment, I'm doing mostly sessions with this box. Now, the interesting thing about this box is when I ask a question, there is only about a second of a window for a response. Yes, I am getting a lot of responses in a lot of the sessions. So that is interesting in itself. Um, and the Rob, who is using a circuit now that Steve Holte and Katie Holte developed, uh, flips the audio from the Spirit box and reverses it. So anything that comes out of the Spirit box should be backways, but yet he's still getting the same responses as if he was using it forward
So
sometimes.
basically, you're saying with reversed audio, he's actually getting recognisable speech coming through the box.
Yes, the thing is, you do get a lot of apps, right? The app builders, a lot of them haven't dialed in the speed properly. The speed has to be at a certain speed, and Rob had mentioned that 160 milliseconds, uh, between 160 and 180 milliseconds, was the sweet spot for getting these responses. Now he put a lot of work into developing that and stuff, and he's hoping that some of us will take up the challenge and have a trial with him. So um, I'm hoping that I can get a hold of this circuit. Um, he said he was going to show people how to get it and put it together and that, but I'm not an electronics
Hmm.
expert. People make the stuff, I use them and that. That is it. Um, and I'm starting to do EVPs again. But some of the work that we do, it's not. YouTube isn't our
Yeah.
priority here. Some of the stuff is not YouTube. it's not YouTube suitable, if you know what I mean. Yes, you do have to record your sessions and stuff like that, and record your recordings and stuff like that. But YouTube's not the priority for me. The evidence is,
Right.
and that's why I have a second channel where it's just ITC. There's no confusion. If you like ITC, you know, go over there. If you're not, eh, there's other channels on the internet.
Yeah.
But the sole goal here is to get that evidence and get more and more information. And it's not just one session, it's a multiple of sessions where you start to gather information and start putting a jigsaw together. Whether that information is correct at the end of it is another thing.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Right, Sam.
But
You said Robbie's claiming that the sweet spot for spirit box communication is between 160 and 180 milliseconds. I presume that's the sweep speed.
yes, that's for the reverse
Right.
audio. Now this technology isn't it's not it's not right widely available yet, because there is other people using reverse pedals, and I asked him about reverse pedals, and he says no, the reverse pedal uh, doesn't work in the similar
Yeah.
way, because the reverse pedal is designed for guitars
Yeah.
after all, not designed for the type of audio that we're putting in
Yeah.
there. So that was a waste of money on
Mhm.
my part. So now I have a reverse pedal that I won't be using.
Right, James has got a question in the chat already. He says, Brett, can the old valve radios be used for ITC, the radios that used to pick up Radio Luxembourg? What do you think about that, Sam?
I have two of them, and one of them I have is one of the similar radios that Marcello Bacci used for direct radio voices, which is not a scanned method. Now, the other box, I've used it a few times, but the belt is slipping on it. But it's certainly, but it doesn't have to be valve radio. It can be any radio with a a dial that is comfortable for you to turn. I have the Spirit of St. Louis radios, and I've done a couple of sessions with them, and it was pretty interesting. If you're interested in doing a multi-frequency sort of spirit box session, like as if it was scanning,
Yeah.
in other words, turning over back to dial. Um, it's a long time since I tried uh, direct radio voices, but you have to have an awful lot of patience. It's really, really,
Hmm.
it's very difficult. But definitely the multi frequencies definitely work.
Yeah.
These spirit boxes where you cut a wire for the mute and things like that. Some of them are noisy, some of them are not. Certainly, I had doubts. I had a lot of questions, but after doing so many sessions, definitely there's something communicating back with us. Um, what these communicators are, it's not 100% certain. They say there's spirits and ghosts, but um, is that information reliable? That's the
Yeah.
question.
Right. What I was going to ask you, what do you think you are actually communicating with when you use a spirit box? Bearing in mind that what you're getting back is electronic. What do you believe it's dead people? Do you believe it's, I don't know, a form of energy? What do you personally believe you are communicating with when you do your spirit communication via ITC?
Um, my picture of it now is a little bit different than it
Yeah.
was, and maybe because I'm doing so many sessions, I'm tuned into it more. But I did mention a lot of the time where I get these static feelings on the hands and the feet and the face. um, you know, I get a lot of evidence. I get a lot of evidence, and I have in the past, saying I'm dead. I was
Yeah.
murdered. You know, where on the radio would you get that? So, um, and I'm going by some of these other ITC researchers that have been doing it for 30 and 40 years. They truly believe that it's the ghost of spirits of people that once were human beings like
Mhm.
you and I. Um, you know, and they some of these people have been. You think of people like Annabella Cardoso. She had done a period of time in the laboratory of acoustics and things
Yeah.
like that. So you know these people know what they're doing. You
Mhm.
know, I'm just trying to learn, and I'm new to this, even though I'm here doing this a couple of years. I'm very new
Yeah.
to this, you know. But I believe because there's English responses and human responses that that's what I'm going on. But I still have an open mind
Yeah.
on that.
Claire said, and this is an interesting question, Sam, which can open up an old can of worms. Sam, I've noticed as I watch your ITC, you get great responses. However, what I hear and what others hear is just so different. Do you think it's because of pareidolia we hear what we want to? Now, I'll put the question to you, Sam. Do you think we hear what we want to, or do you think there is some kind of mechanism involved where the person who needs to get the message they want to get across will actually hear that message, or do you think that it is literally a case of pareidolia, or that pareidolia is in some way being used by them to get the message across?
Yeah, pareidolia is a big thing, but you know, you will see in the comment section. I don't put subtitles, and I show them a
Yeah.
clip, and I don't put any subtitles, and you would be. It's unbelievable about a lot of people are not hearing what
Mhm.
others are hearing when it's sometimes plain as day what it
Yeah.
actually is. Do you know? So is everybody's human ears different to certain frequencies? Um, I don't know. You know, um, but you know, pareidolia is a very that's the controversial thing with all the with the
Mhm.
ITC. But you know, with this box, I got 1 second of a window to get a response after I ask a question. So there's not snippets of radio. There's a kind of a like almost a direct response mode on this, similar to a quiet mode on a PS or a
Mhm.
PSP 7, where very little comes through. You know, and there's less chances of pareidolia that way, rather than the scanned radio where you do get
Yeah.
snippets of radio. But the thing people need to listen out for is that with scanning frequencies, there's two layers. You'll get the communication layer and you'll get the radio layer. And the communication layer is sometimes a different tone, but you'll hear them talking over each other between spirit layer and radio layer. And you get to notice the difference. You get to notice a different tone and things like that. But pareidolia definitely is a bit of an issue, and it's difficult when you're using all those multiple frequencies and little
Yeah.
snippets of radio. But the reverse speech will eliminate that, and it proves that the spirit box does
Yeah.
work. You know.
Right, Sam, here's an interesting question for you. Do you believe that when you're communicating on a spirit box, do you believe they are actually plucking words directly off radio broadcasts? Or do you think they're actually plucking sound and manipulating it to sound like someone else? Or do you think it's a combination of the two?
It's a difficult one. A lot of the experts in audio and stuff believe that it's frequencies. It's certain
Hmm.
frequencies. Um, it's a good question because you've got these people, and I'm not going to mention the H word, but you get these people that are doing these spirit box sessions of dead celebrities, and they're using the audio of their voice backwards. Um, but they say this is how I'm doing it, but they go into a spiel about how they're doing it, but they don't
Yeah.
tell you anything. So, show me the money, and then I'll believe it. That would tell you that they use words, using their own words. That's that
Hmm.
theory. Um, the A lot of the older ITC people believe that it's not so much the sounds, but the frequencies
Yeah.
themselves, kind of thing. If that makes any
Yeah,
sense.
James has put this is quite interesting. Also, it could be that only people sensitive to the paranormal will hear what's actually being said, just how some people can pick up on spirits and others can maybe only some people can hear it. Do you think that may be happening, Sam? Do you think that people who are more attuned to what to it are actually hearing what is deliberately being said, and others are just hearing, just actual radio garble?
Yeah, it's like the conversation we had a little while ago. I have a noisy road
Hmm.
outside, and it's got loads of traffic. In my subconscious, I can't hear it, but now that I mentioned it, and if I took off my headphones, I will hear the
Hmm.
traffic going up and down. But if it's not in my subconscious, I don't hear it. But that doesn't mean that the information isn't going
Hmm.
into my brain, if that makes any sense. But I do have people that come on and they can hear every
Yeah.
single thing. But then you have these other people that are just looking for the negative words like evil and
Hmm.
demon and stuff like that. They don't hear, they'll hear, demon, evil, blah, blah, blah. And there might be something completely off the wall, maybe a whole sentence, and it's mind blowing, and they flip and miss it. Sometimes people hear what they want to hear, and they block out what they
Right.
don't, what they're not looking for, if you
Yeah.
know what I mean. And people need to learn to know what they're looking for in a session. You know, um,
Yeah. Do,
you
do
know.
do you do you think that people do ever get demons talking to them through a spirit box?
Ooh,
That's one to put you on the
um,
spot with.
it's difficult because we get the old
Hmm.
Desmonds a lot, Demon and Satan and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And recently I got Devil's
Yeah.
Angel, which order of magnitude got. His was a bit clearer than mine, but just you know, we both got it.
Yeah.
Whatever the Devil's Angel is about, but I didn't prompt the spirit box to
Yeah.
say that. Um, um, I don't know. We won't know until we we go into that next realm. Do you know? But what I do know is if anything negative starts coming up, I'll close the session and
Yeah.
finish
Do Go on, carry on.
because I know the theories out there that the communicators work through us to communicate, and when you get these electrostatic feelings and that, I'm before I was getting those feelings, I would dismiss it, but now I'm not so sure. But it's made me more aware and made me actually a little bit more scared that if I'm dealing with something negative, I don't want it influencing me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know? I only want positivity
Mhm.
around me. Um, so I don't want these negative things. I know it's great validation to hear demons and devils and Satan and stuff like that, which doesn't very often come up on the radio. But at the same time, you just have to sort of be aware that, you know, negativity could
Yeah.
happen. To say be in a positive mood, meditate beforehand, think, focus, and all that thing. I actually do believe in that now. To be in the right frame of mind. You see these people sometimes they take out the PSP 7 and they turn it on and they say let's whip out the spurt box and as if it was the
Yeah.
mobile phone. You need to focus. You get more results if you focus and if you have to be respectful as well. If you're not respectful, why should they
Yeah.
talk to you? Do you know?
Now,
Do you know?
Just Chaos has just put a comment in, Sam, which is really good. He's put, I'm curious. Would you not hear spirits at your caliber more on a subconscious level? Now that is a really interesting thing. Could it actually be that people who get good spirit communication aren't actually getting anything through the radio as such? It's just that the radio signals are acting as a focus point for somebody with that kind of ability. Do you believe this is why certain people, the more they do it, tend to get better communication? Not because their equipment is getting better, rather that the person's own psychic ability is being honed and fine tuned.
I think that is definitely a part of it. You hear people that say, "Oh, they've got great communications." You even hear people like Proven Demons used to get great responses on his radios and stuff like that. Before he went into the entertainment and that. And you know, if I was talking to him, I would ask what's your state of mind when you're asking the questions because it used to look like he was concentrating on his box. You see him there with the dial radio and you see the concentration on his face and that. I think, it's possibly why he was getting so many
Yeah,
responses. You know, so I think focus is a good, is I think is helps a lot. And I think, yeah, I thank the communicators and I thank the guy who made this box. But I think the more I've done this, the better responses that have
yeah,
been coming in and that. And yeah, I mean, when I started this, the first radio I bought was the noise box, the PSP 11. It took me nearly a month. It took me to the point where I says this is rubbish, and then I got my first response. But it took me nearly 4 weeks,
mm-hmm.
and I think the more you do it, the more easier it is. And some of these older researchers say try do your sessions in the same place with the same equipment at the
Yeah.
same time. Do you know? But if you can't do that, that's okay too. But that's one of these rules that Annabella Cardosa used to say, even though she doesn't agree with the scanned
Yeah.
radio method, doesn't mean she's
Hmm.
flipping right because we've got great results from that too. Um, these other people, their main issue with the spirit box is pareidolia. That's
Yeah.
that's basically it.
James has put here, Sam.
No,
Brett, the time of day could have a bearing on the pickup of spirit communication. I think we are at our most spiritually receptive late at night and just before sleep. Our minds seem to be more open. I don't think it's the fact that our minds are more open. I think that is because as you're getting closer to sleep, your conscious mind starts to take, step back, and your subconscious mind starts to move forward into the fore. And I personally believe that a lot of people, who say they have psychic abilities, I believe that those abilities are firmly rooted within the subconscious mind. What do you think on that, Sam? Do you find you get better communication on a night during the day, or do you find that it's the same all the way through?
uh, I find if it's late at night and I'm very tired, I don't get as
Hmm.
very much.
So do you think that that's
As
actually an indication that a lot of the communication you're getting is as a result of you rather than the spirit box?
well, the theory is out there that the communicator is the person channeling the communicator to
Yeah.
communicate on the radio. And I cannot explain these other physical effects. These are physical effects, the static feeling and the drain. Sometimes you get drained and
Hmm.
stuff, and it can be very very sudden, but it doesn't happen when I'm doing other things.
Yeah.
You know, so but the thing I found was evening time good, daytime good, but very late at night when I'm tired, not good. No,
So
no.
so 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 you do
I,
personally believe that the person actually doing the session plays a big part in getting good communication. So, like you say, when you're tired, you don't get very good communication. Would you say that that could imply that the person themselves is the main channeler and they are a key ingredient to spirit communication?
yeah, I think so because I think what helps an awful lot is you're having a conversation with the communicator. We can call them spirits or
Hmm.
ghosts, whatever. That's a special occasion because that's paranormal. On YouTube and social media, it's not so special anymore. But when you think about it, it is very special. So if you're talking to a person and you're doing something else at the same time, that can sometimes, well, in the past, could be considered bad
Hmm.
manners. So you know, um, I find I get better communication when I know when I put my mindset to I'm going to be speaking to communicators that I cannot see. I find I get better communication that way rather than turning the spirit box on and go wash my dishes because I done that this morning. And yes, I got interesting stuff, but not as much as if I would lie down on the couch and just close my eyes and just focus and let the spirit box then do its thing.
Do you do you
You
think,
know?
Sam, that you have ever communicated with, well, just say something for want of a better word, there has not been a dead person? Have you ever had the inclination that you may be talking to some, and I ain't saying this happens all the while, but have you ever been in a position where you've done a session and you've thought maybe this ain't a dead person, it's something else?
Funny you mention that because there was a time I was up at this mountain where Dunry Fort is. It's one of my favourite spots. And the night before, I was watching a video from Elemental Encounters, and I kind of had in my head that, maybe there is these little creatures that are running around the place and we can't see them and stuff like that. So this was in my
Hmm.
head as I'm heading to the location, and I'm going to do a spurt box in at my favorite building, which
Yeah.
burned to the ground. I turned on the spurt box, and it says I'm a gnome, and I'm going, you know, I think I missed it. I missed it. I think I missed it at the time, but when I listened back, I was thinking it says I'm a
Yeah.
gnome. Like, where on the radio would it say that? And my state of mind at the time was there's possibly, I need to open my mind to
Hmm.
other things, and that was on my mind at the time. Um, which would add to the theory that sometimes what's on our mind can come out of the spirit box. You plan a question and you get an answer before you've asked. It's just some of this stuff is mind-boggling, and we probably never get an full answer to it.
Yeah.
It's
Have
crazy.
you, have you ever,
Yeah.
Sam, have you ever done a session where you have been uncomfortable about what's coming through, or have you ever been in a situation where you've stopped a session because of what's been coming through because you haven't been comfortable with what's either being said or what you think you're talking to?
Um, the last investigation that me and Rachel did, um, we had actually finished the investigation and we were on the way out, and I seen this forest, and I says maybe we should go up there and have a
Hmm.
look. I says just in case I'll bring a spur box. So we go this forest road and that, and we end up on top of this big rock. And I says right, we whip out the spur box and that, and um, I guess coming through. Uh, Fat
Yeah.
CUNT. Now I'm the one doing the spurt box session, and I'm a little bit overweight, and I'm thinking, what the hell? But the thing was, before that, I give Rachel the camera, and it was the first worst footage she's ever done because she was shaking, and she told me afterwards. She says, "I don't know what come over me, but it was just something made me shake and shiver. The weather was fine, and but when we came off the
Yeah.
rock, she was fine. So was she channeling that? Like sometimes I channel the communicator and get these static feelings. Was she getting a severe effect that night? I don't know. It made us uneasy, but we just turned around and says we have to go back there again. She says, yeah,
Yeah.
you
James has
know.
just asked something really good, and to be honest with you, Sam, I've got to be 100% honest. This question has never ever occurred to me, but what he's put here is actually quite deep and quite interesting. He's put, when a
Right.
spirit box session takes place, is it actually communication with an intelligence that is still existing, or is the box just picking up bits of historical memories left around? Right, now, in the paranormal world, there is generally two types of haunting that are considered to be taking place. You can either get a residual haunting, which is like what stone tape theory comes under, where they believe it's actually a recording of something. And then you've got your intelligent hauntings, which is where you get intelligent responses back off whatever spirits or vision they're currently encountering. Oh god, the wolf's doing a crap while we're talking. Do you think, Sam, it's actually possible that that could be occurring on the spirit box? Do you think we could actually be having two types of different communication, both intelligent and residual? That is actually a damn good question, James. I've got to be honest.
It,
And it's
it
something I've
is,
never
it is,
considered before.
yeah, because we had a situation a way back when I was in secondary school where we uh, went on a religious weekend, and there was this. I can seriously say that it wasn't any of the people that we were with, but there was this figure down in the courtyard, and it didn't. It seemed a little bit odd. One of these old-fashioned long night dresses, and she was crying her eyes out. And I called over some of them, and there was about 11 of us, and we were looking out through two windows right beside each other. Some of them could see and
Yeah,
not hear, some of them could hear but not see, and one or two of us could see and hear. So, with stone tape theories, there's a possibility that audio is
yeah,
trapped as well. Now, could it be the same with the spirit box? I don't know, but I do know there's an intelligence, communication as well, because I've recently done tests with colors. It was supposed to be a visual ITC where I done the video loop on
hmm
the television, and I don't think that was a success. But I was running the spirit box as a communicator, and I says, right, maybe the visuals isn't. And I asked, can you show yourself on the television? They said, yeah, I can. And then they went, no, I can't.
yeah,
Do you know? I can't remember exactly what they said, but they gave me a response. And then I says, right, you don't have to do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. You don't have to do it. It's just, but it's not lovely colours on the television. I love the reds and the yellows and the oranges and the purples and all. What's your favourite colour? And they go, uh, blue. I says, all right, yeah, there's blue there, like. And then next thing, somebody else went grey. And I'm thinking, I asked the question, I got a
yeah.
colour answer. It's the same with numbers sometimes. How many candles are on the table? There was recently a session I done, and I had two gold statues in front of the box. And I says, "Can you tell me what color those statues are?" And they said gold, and it was as clear as
Yeah.
clear as anything. And I'm going, that's why I do this. It's not for views and subs. I just do it for this
hmm
evidence. It's something
Yeah.
you won't
Yeah.
forget, you know.
Now, hang on,
But
chaos. Go on, carry on.
sir,
Sorry.
certainly, we can't rule out the responsibility that, or the possibility, that we're getting stone tape audio as well. It's a
Yeah.
possibility, you
Chaos
know.
has put, but you get out of body experiences. So could it be that you are talking to them? I presume, is what he meant to say. Um, I would say that that is a possibility. I'll ask Sam in a minute. I know there is quite a few recorded cases of seances and mediums. Thank you very much, Mandy. Much appreciated. That really is appreciated. There are cases where mediums and seances have actually communicated with people who have then proven to be alive. So, could it be possible that we could actually be communicating with people? Say in the UK, we could be communicating with Australians who are asleep in bed at that, at the normal times we're up and about. Could we actually be communicating with subconscious minds of people around the world who are currently asleep and out of the body? Do you think that could be a possible? I ain't saying with every case, Sam, but do you think that that could be a possibility? Because with spirit boxes, it is energy based.
That that could be a possibility. The nearest thing I can experience is there was two occasions where I heard my dog walking around the
Yeah.
kitchen, and I look across and I go as white as a sheet because she's sleeping on
Mhm.
the chair. And it's the exact pitter patter on the lino floor, and I'm going, what's that all
Yeah.
about? Do you know what I mean? It sounds like the same pattern, but obviously my dog's not dead. So, if that can happen, it could be a possibility. Um, could we have a spiritual
Yeah.
self that we're not aware of,
Yeah.
or whatever, or a subconscious being, a spiritual being? Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, um, are do we have a copy of ourselves as a spiritual being in another dimension who is existing parallel to us?
Yeah.
Do you know, like when they say a parallel universe or so? Could there be a possibility that our spiritual being does already exist on a parallel uh,
Mhm.
plane? That could maybe explain the fact that some people are getting their own voice coming back to them on a spirit box.
Yeah.
Do you
Deb's
know?
put, if it is an intelligent response, could it be a new spirit trying to understand what has happened to them? Have you ever had a communication session somewhere you've spoke to somebody who hasn't either realised they're dead or have actually asked you for help after claiming they have recently died? Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Um, I get a lot of asks for help, and I've had whispers coming through the spirit box that are so. Uh, and I still don't know unless I'm going to bring that footage to my friend who's an audio engineer, and I'm going to get her to peel back the audio layers to see was it actually on the spirit box or was it a direct EVP on the camera. But I'm getting a lot help me a lot. A lot of us do, you know. And but then you ask about how can we help, and you don't get any
Yeah.
information on that. So
Yeah.
it's
Do
don't
you
know.
think you start approaching that thing? Because I've always said, regardless of how you've done, how I've ever done communication, be it a spirit box, be it the Ouija board, be it a séance or a medium, whenever the question has been asked about death itself and what's going on the other side, they clam up. So do you think that could be another one of these natural no-nos for them? Because I do firmly believe that there are firm rules in place where that whatever existence they are in at the moment, they are only allowed to reveal so much about it.
If you want to mess up your spirit box session, that's one way to do it. Is ask them about the afterlife because that's when communication just goes,
Hmm.
whoo, gone, see you, bye. You can't even say, they don't even say goodbye. You might as well turn off the spirit
Yeah.
box. That's what I find. That's what I find. Um, Now I say, well, if you can't tell me, don't tell me because I don't want to be
Hmm.
forceful in that. Because if you ask a person about a certain thing and don't want you they don't want to tell you, you consistently ask them about it can annoy them. So you have to think of it kind of on a
Yeah.
human level
Yeah.
too. You know what I mean? A respectful human level sort of thing. But I find that that's the reason why we're not getting information on the afterlife is because they're not
Yeah.
telling us.
Sam, I have just got to pop to the loo. Can you just carry on chatting for a minute because I'm absolutely bursting. I'll just read a question for you and then you can give your opinion while I'm doing it. James has put also, will people doing a spirit box session in the UK only get communication with people who've died within the UK? Or could a spirit from the US be picked up? To which Chaos responded, a spirit can be picked up from anywhere. You might have had contact with a family member that in time has relocated elsewhere. I have actually had spirit box sessions where I've had French coming through for the owl session, and I live hundreds of miles away from France. So, what's your opinion on that, Sam? Do you believe, that spirits can come in from anywhere, or do they have to be local to you, to where you are? And I'm just going to run to the loo while you answer.
Right. Recently, I've actually had French as well on two different Spurt box sessions, and the theory is that time and space doesn't actually matter. So I don't know. A lot of these things are all theories and that, but um, some of you do get these people that do these celebrity spirit box sessions. Now, some of them are charlatans, but some of them are genuine. There's a few that are genuine. And the reason why they do these celebrity spirit box sessions is because they were a great fan of them and they believe that in the afterlife there's no time or space. Because I questioned them before. I says, these people are thousands of miles away and they didn't even know you, so why are you asking questions about them? And their simple answer is the possibility that there is no time or space in the afterlife. Time or space is just a a rule or a way that us humans live by. So I don't know. There was one day I messed around and I can't remember the situation, but I was messing around with French, and I says bonjour, come and tell you or whatever. I didn't get
Bonjour,
anything that
what?
day,
Come and
but the
tell.
next bon
So they're asking you to come
yeah.
watch the TV with them.
No, bonjour, come on, Telly-Roo. That is, hello, how are you? But I was just messing around on the box. But the next day, I got bonjour, and another session recently, I got bonjour again.
Yeah, that session I
But I,
did the one night, and it was for about 30 minutes, Sam, and it was literally every other sentence was in French, and it wasn't faint and broken up. It was literally like it was coming through a local radio station. That's how loud and clear it was. Now, where I live is hundreds of
yeah,
miles from France.
yeah, I mean, like, we may have some radio stations that we get coming through, but as I said before, if you hear some of the sessions with this box, I ask a question, I've got 1 second of a window to get an
Yeah,
answer because very, very little comes through,
yeah.
you know. So, um, when you were gone to the loo there, I was on about some of these people that are doing celebrity spirit box sessions, but they're doing it in a genuine kind of way because they believe that they can do it, that they believe that it's possible. There's a
Yeah.
possibility, and their belief system is in the afterlife. There's no time
Mhm.
and space. We actually put that to the test
Yeah.
recently. I let um, the guy that owns the Spirit Box do a session in my house while he's doing a session in his own house, and I was getting responses on this box here, and there was reference to there was a lot of reference for months back of Emma, and I didn't know who's Emma. I only know one Emma. She owns a haunted house. So are you referring to that or what? Turns out he's getting Emma, and Emma is supposed to be a spirit of a little child that's haunting his house. Emma and Ed, and I'm getting those two coming up constantly. After we done the tests and that, I done a spirit box session directly after one of the tests, and I was asking about Ed and Emma, and I was getting Ed and
Mhm.
Emma coming up. you know, whether they're copying me, I don't know. but I was getting them up. I was getting those names coming up without
Yeah.
asking them that. So is time and space important in the afterlife? Maybe not. I don't
Yeah,
know.
chaos has put there before a soul realises they are dead is about 10 minutes. But to us in the living, it's like 10 years. That's where no time comes in. Do you believe that could actually possibly be going on, Sam? Where time for these beings, whatever they are, be they dead people, be they, energy forms or whatever, do you believe that they could possibly be operating on a different time scale to us?
I would say there's a big possibility because in the physical world things age, but the question is, does energy age? If we're looking at things in a spiritual kind of way, does things in the spirit world age?
Yeah,
You know, and when you look into the factors of age, weathering, weather conditions, temperature, how we eat, our lifestyle, that is all a factor of us
yeah,
aging. But naturally, it's aging on the earth. You're talking about weathering and stuff like that. But that possibly doesn't occur in the
hmm,
spiritual realm or the parallel
yeah,
universe or whatever you. But we can only throw theories out there. We don't have
yeah.
definite answers.
James
You
has
know.
put, could why is it blocking the word shit? Christ, it's an adult chat. Could be that communication is coming from many different dimensions. We assume that once we've passed, there's just the next life, but entities in the afterlife may pass on to another level. Now, I agree with that, James. I also believe that there are communications going on with things that have never been on this, shall we say, on this plane as a human or as a person, so to speak. I genuinely believe that communication, be it through the spirit box, the Ouija board, seances, anything like that, I believe personally that it's a combination of things we get through. We're getting through. I don't believe every communication that we get is from a person or a dead person. What's your opinion on that, Sam?
Well, I've seen a theory this morning. It was on Weird or What with William Shatner, and it was a very good explanation that we live in a universe, right? And that universe is a bubble, but there is many more bubbles, and those bubbles sometimes touch, and that's why sometimes we get communication with a different universe on a different level. Um, or the theory, you listened or you watch BBC One and you change over to
Hmm.
BBC Two, but BBC One didn't go
Yeah.
away; it's still there. But you're tuned into BBC Two, so there's just so many different levels. But um, is there other life and other beings on a different frequency? There's a possibility because none of any of this is proven at all. You know,
Yeah. Jack said, well, I've lost it now. Did you watch Sam's video with Rob and the two spirit boxes running at the same time? It was awesome. I did, yes. Very interesting. There is something I'm going to ask Sam about because I want to set up an experiment with Sam, if he's willing to do it, where Sam will run a spirit box, and we could do this next week if you want, Sam. And while you're running a spirit box, I will set up a pendulum here, and we'll see what you're getting on the spirit box, and see if we get anything that's corresponding with a pendulum. Something a bit more old school.
well, another thing that you can do too is you can actually take control of the spirit box because these headphones have another
Hmm.
jack in here, and I can put a tiny little speaker in front of the radio, so your voice will come through very, very low, so it won't go through
Yeah.
an echo on the stream, but your voice will be heard, so you can ask your questions and you'll then hear the responses. So there's a possibility you'll be able to use the Spirit Box
Yeah. Even
yourself.
better.
Do you
You know,
know?
but I thought
Do
that'd
you
be
know?
really interesting if next week we do an experiment where we combine modern investigation methods with more old school ones. So if you run your spirit box and I run a pendulum at the same time, we've got old school and modern technology running at the same time, and it'll be interesting to see if we get similar responses on the spirit box and on the pendulum.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I had two pendulums, and somebody asked me, do I ever try the pendulums? And I don't know why it's not a thing that I'm
Yeah,
into. I just have them because they look nice,
yeah,
you know. But uh, people are into their different things. I'm sticking on this path kind of thing. But certainly we could do that, and you could actually take control of the spur box too, because what Rob was asking was coming through my spur box. There has been one or two complaints because there was another spur box that he was using that was going backwards, and mine was going frontways, and there was too much audio and it was annoying people and that. But the thing is, I'm not doing this to make a video to
yeah.
entertain people.
Deb has
I
put
was done.
something on there that's interesting, so I'm sorry to interrupt you. Brett gets
All right.
someone from a different country. What is interesting here is Sam is in Ireland. I am on mainland UK. I am more than happy to have two other people from wherever they are around the world. If they want to come on and use a specific communication method of their own, and we could have four different communications running from four different parts of the world at the same time, I'm more than happy to do that if Sam's okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, whatever way you want
Yeah,
to do it, just certainly, you know. Um, the one interesting thing, and I thought it was pretty controversial, but I have no reason to believe the guy is lying. But Rob, uh, he allowed people to call out for their loved ones, and there was stuff coming up there that he didn't know, but it was the people that were asking the questions got
yeah.
answers to, and they were really excited about. So it's a controversial thing, but um, is it a possibility that? But at the same time, I called out to loved ones, and no joy.
I've never had any
I
communication off any of my relatives who've passed on in any form, Sam. Either doing it myself or
there
speaking
was
to other mediums. I've never had any communication off family members.
there was a day last week where I was missing my friend who died in 2015, and I was weeping about it. Do you know sometimes you just
Yeah.
get upset. You try to you move on, but sometimes when you think of memories and that, you get weepy and
Hmm.
stuff like that. The next day I done a Spirit Box session, and I says, "Can you tell me why I was upset yesterday? Who did I miss?" And I didn't put a subtitle there because I don't do it, but I kind of thought twice, will I even actually put it up? Because it actually did come out with the name. Most people are going to miss it, but it's important to me. But it kind of goes to show that our minds are sometimes kind of
Yeah.
red, because you're about to ask a question, you just about got an answer before you even asked. It's just, but it's paranormal. We don't. It's paranormal, the definition of paranormal is something that is out of the normal and isn't proven by
Yeah.
science. And that's what all this is. And we can't say it's this and it's this and it's this. All we can do is give an opinion and a theory on it,
Yeah. Jack
really.
said, Sam, to tell you there was no complaint from her about the experiment you did with Rob. I said the sound was annoying, but it was easy to put up with because of the experiment and the evidence gathered.
Yeah, I put that video out for sort of Rob's benefit kind of thing, and anybody else that wanted to watch. But I do understand because when I go onto a video and say, right, we're going to do a PSP7 Spurt box, and I go, oh, fuck, no, excuse my language. Do you know what is FM
Yeah.
or AM? And there's no, I only use the PSP7 on quiet mode
Mhm.
because the static is actually fake static and it drowns sometimes. It's not as bad as the PSP 11, but there is certain sounds that affect people's
Yeah.
ears, and I also understand the sensitivity sometimes. I get it myself with the S box. I can't stand that thing. you know.
Hang on. I'm just answering Claire. Claire says she's had a couple of dreams regarding some emotional things. Do you believe dreaming is a form of spirit communication, Sam? Do you believe that when people dream of people who've passed on, that occasionally they could, or, sometimes they could actually be communicating with the actual person rather than just dreaming about them?
Well, it would be if you could call it logical. When we're doing our everyday things, we're concentrating on I must go over to the shop and get something for dinner and milk and bread and blah blah blah. Must feed the dog. I must do this. Maybe I'll watch something on the television and that. But when we're sleeping, we don't do
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
We're on a rest. Our mind is relaxed. And that if there was paranormal activity to take place, that would be the time that would you would think would
yeah.
happen. Do you know?
Mandy's just put throws the wolf a bone so he stops distracting my eye. Funnily enough, Mandy, I actually said to Sam earlier on, uh, I'm putting the wolf on so when people get bored of listening to me and you, they can watch what the wolf's up to. He is actually the official channel mascot now. That's Para the Wolf. He does tend to do rather rude things sometimes, like he's quite prone to taking a dump and having a pee. So you do have to ignore him. But he's totally. Uh, it's not a video running in the background. It is an interactive uh, screensaver. He's basically all random what he does. He likes to fight with other wolves or play with them and get chased by bears and stuff. But he is an interactive
And
thing.
can you interact with it after the video was
Yeah,
processed?
yeah. I can
All
insert.
right.
If you give me, hang on. Let me just. I will show you how I can interact with him. Give me a second. Can you still all hear me?
Yeah.
Uh, hang on. I'm just gonna have to wait until he comes down a minute. If you look, I can actually call him to me and make him jump, or I can throw him a ball to chase.
Wow.
But yeah, he's fully interactive.
I can't wait to see the graphics after this is finished.
Yeah, it's gone quite well actually. It's good, that I built the computer as powerful as it did because it's running that in the background. It's running, you know, Streamlabs, and it's also doing the streaming. So there's a lot of processing power in this one. The only thing that'll glitch occasionally is things like like the internet, where you'll find that the windows will pop out and then go back to the normal size again.
Yeah.
Joanne says they must have rules that they are forbidden to tell us. I totally agree with that, Joanne, and I've discussed this before with various people, including Sam. I personally
Yeah.
believe that there are natural laws in order that they are whoever we're talking to are not allowed to tell us certain things. I think it was, I can't remember whether it was Mandy or I think it might have been Mandy said earlier. Um, Things like, you know, the suicide rates in the world would literally skyrocket if life after death or anything like that was ever, you know, undoubtedly proven.
I've had responses in the past when I asked, and I says, is it a secret? And they go, yeah,
Hmm.
or I can't
Yeah.
tell you. But generally, that's when they just they're gone. You might as well turn the box off because you just scared them away. They don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. Joanne says, "Do you believe the communicators tell the truth when they say their name?" Personally, Joanne, I think you're just as liable to get a liar than you are somebody telling the truth, but that's just my personal opinion. I have always said, you know, and especially where the deceased are concerned, you do not turn into Mother Teresa when you pass from this life into whatever we move on to next. If you're bad in life, you're bad in death. If you're good in life, you're more liable to be good in death. I don't believe there's any great epiphany where you convert into some kind of saint. What's your opinion on that, Sam? Do you believe that
Uh,
people lie during communication?
oh yeah, I mean, like you cannot take what's coming from the spirit box as gospel.
Hmm.
Um, but you can be amazed at what they tell you
Oh yeah.
sometimes. Do you know what I mean? Uh, you know, they can even laugh about some of your jokes or color responses, number responses, the color of the clothes that you're wearing, which gives you a lot of information because it will tell you that they can hear you and they can actually
Yeah.
see you. You know?
Have you ever had a session on the box, Sam, where something you have been told or some information's been imparted to you where almost immediately it's been validated within a few days or something, or in like within a week or so?
Um, not not really in that sense, no, because very often, what I'm getting is one or two words. So sometimes you'll get information from one of those one or two words that keep coming up, and then you add more. There's more words or whatever. The longest sentence I've actually got was 5 words.
And
You know,
what I'm saying is, has somebody ever said anything to you that's actually proven true? Have you been able to ever validate anything that's been said to you? So that beyond a doubt what you were told was the truth.
um, no, not really, because you get information. I was murdered. I died. Last week, I got dog die, and I'm thinking, and the dog was begging for treats and stuff, and then I'm going, oh
Mm.
crap. And thankfully she's fine. She's lying. Oh yeah, she's breathing. She's fine. But certainly I was on edge for a couple
Yeah.
of days, so I didn't know what that was
Hmm.
about. But they were able to tell me who I was upset and crying about. My friend, they were able to say their name. I don't
Yeah.
know. They're not able to tell. You're not going to get the lotto numbers or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Do
I
do
think,
you believe that people sometimes, and it's a human, it's a human failing that everybody suffers from. Do you believe that sometimes people read into it, what they want to hear rather than what is actually said? Have you ever come across situations where you've had communication and you've convinced yourself one thing, but when you've listened back to it, you've realised that it was something else?
oh yeah, I mean, like if you're, I mean, like I can go back to the beginning and look at some of those videos that I done and cringe about it, getting all excited about it's spirits, oh genie back and all the rest of it. Um, yeah, I mean, like in the beginning, you have to learn how to not be convinced that everything that's coming up is spur communication when you're using a scanned radio.
Yeah.
You know, because you're going to get. I remember one time. It wasn't so long ago. It was flipping St. Valentine's Day. I got this beautifully sound female saying "love you," and I'm going, "Oh, that's so nice." And I says, "Hold on," and I says, "Hold on a second. It's Valentine's Day," and I had just said, "I love you too," and then I says, "Hold on a second. It's Valentine's Day. That's going to come up on the radio anyway." But then again, did it? It came out really strange. It wasn't the same pattern as the radio, but I had to throw it out because it was Valentine's
Yeah.
Day.
Joanne B says, Sam, when she passes, she's going to communicate with you and tell you she's the bogeyman. When I pass, I'm just going to want shower blocks.
Funny enough, when you say shower blocks, that shower block in that army camp was off the charts. I had another investigating team, and they only lasted a couple of minutes in there because one of them got sick. Strange,
Claire
you
says
know.
the weirdest thing, she had a dream about planes crashing, nothing distinct in it, but then a big crash happened a week later. Do you think that that can happen, Sam? Because I have heard of people claiming that things like 9/11 and stuff like that, that they either dreamed about it or they were doing speaking to a medium, or they were doing oh, excuse me,
Are
they were doing
you?
something like a
Are
spirit
you?
box, and they were forewarned of it. Do you believe that's possible with a? Oh, I've got the hiccups with the spirit box that you can actually be forewarned of something.
Possibly. Funny enough, you mentioned that. I don't know. Somebody subconsciously reading my mind because I just came off before I came on stream, looking at a those documentaries, Weird or
Yeah.
What, and there was a guy on it who was ringing the airport saying, I keep getting this dream about this plane crash, and then the plane crash
Mhm.
happened. You know, so it's kind of weird, but for somebody to bring that up, but I just watched it, it's kind of weird as well. So are we subconsciously connected to each other as well?
Right. Okay. Oh, James has just asked an interesting question, Sam. He's put, Brett, which of you had better communication on the Ouija board or the spirit box? And do you think one works better than the other? Now, I'm going to be totally controversial here and say that I have actually had better communication on the Ouija board than I have on the spirit box. But no, I don't think one works better than the other. I firmly believe that one is just a more technologically advanced version of the other. Sam, what's your opinion on
I've
that?
never I've never used a Ouija board in my life.
You've got to,
The
you've got to
team,
experiment,
the
Sam.
team, of, the team have the team I worked
Yeah.
with have used a Ouija board a couple of times, and they've asked me, and I says no, I'll just be a bystander. and I'm just looking, I'm just concentrating on people's hands. You know, we're going back to spur communication and the effects on the body and stuff like that. I used to think that the Ouija board was a load of
Hmm.
crap until I started getting physical effects during spurt box
Yeah.
sessions, which leads to the possibility that the spirits are using our bodies because they don't have a physical
Yeah.
body of their own. They would need a physical body to move that planchette, wouldn't
Hmm.
you think? Well, then again, you have these poltergeist activity where things are moving on
Yeah.
their own. But I think in that particular scenario, they're using a human body to move the planchette. But with that, it's a personal
Yeah.
experience. You know, you put the camera on that, people are not going to go, wow, that's amazing. It spelled
Hmm.
out this, because they're going to say, well, which one of them
Yeah.
moved it? Do you know what I mean? You have to be in the paranormal in anything you do. You have to. It's all. If you don't have trust, you have absolutely
Yeah.
nothing. And if you don't have trust and honesty, you have to be trust. You have to trust people, and people have to be honest. If you don't have those two things, and that's what's sometimes leads to drama and
Yeah.
controversy. If you don't have trust and honesty, you might as well you're wasting your time. You're wasting your
Joanne
time.
B says, a question for you, Sam. Have you ever tried communicating with a pendulum?
No, I tried the
Yeah.
rods. I don't like them because when I well, I kind of don't like them. I'm getting the pins and needles on the spirit box, right? There's pins and needles, but when I hold the rods, it's like being electrocuted. This sting. They actually sting your
Hmm.
hands. I find them a
Yeah.
bit weird. Um, yeah, maybe because they're stinging my hands. It's energy or whatever. Maybe maybe I should try them more.
Yeah.
You know. But I do. There's something weird about those. People say you can't manipulate them, but you actually can manipulate them a little bit.
Yeah.
But there is something about them and energy or something, because sometimes you'll hold them and you'll just get this sensation down your up your arms when you're
Hmm.
holding them.
James says, why does the Ouija board have such a negative reputation? People always claim that a negative encounter is more likely on the board, but they never say it about the spirit box. I can tell you exactly why, James. It's mainly three reasons. The first one is urban legend. The second one is media, films and stuff like that. And the third one is Christianity, because it was one of the things that was used against pagans and stuff like that to prevent any kind of communication with the dead, because it's frowned upon in the Bible. So that is your three main reasons. Give it long enough, if they start producing movies regarding the spirit box in horror movies a lot more, you will find that the spirit box will end up with exactly the same reputation as the Ouija board.
And that would be a very
Yeah.
sad day.
Stephen says, how do you explain of a dream I had when living in New Zealand of seeing the place to I moved years later in the UK? Basically, I'd say what that was, Stephen, was precognitive dreaming, which is more common than you'd actually think. It is quite a common phenomena that people will actually dream of places or events months, weeks, sometimes even years before they happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's no way of explaining it because people are dreaming of places they've never
Hmm.
been to. Yet they just know everything
Yeah,
about them when they
yeah.
go there. It's weird. It's weird.
Joanne says, Brett, would you
But
consider using a compass? I have used one in the past, Joanne. Didn't have brilliant results with it. I did get some results, but it is something I would like trying again because I want to start going back to doing a lot more of the old school stuff rather than just concentrating on the high tech. I think it'd be good to combine the two. Have you ever tried working with a compass, Sam?
Uh, Once I have compasses on top of my little wind-up lamps. They're actually a very a cheap form of EMF detector
Hmm.
actually because they'll react to
Yeah,
EMF.
yeah.
You know, which is electric energy, and that they will disturb
Hmm.
them. You know, you know. Yeah, try. And they're so free flowing, they're easy to manipulate if the Spurs can move them. Um, you know, they're worth a try. You don't hear a lot of people using them now because they're gone so much
Yeah,
into the
they
electronic
are very
devices
very
and that.
old school. Very old school.
But you see, the thing is, a compass, generally, if it can't go faulty with electrical faults or anything like that, because it's a compass. You
Mm.
know what I mean?
Deb says, where does voodoo fit into the paranormal? Voodoo itself is actually a religion, a belief system. The way it slots into the paranormal is exactly the same way that paganism, witchcraft, and hoodoo, all those anything that involves magic is the link into the paranormal. Voodoo itself is very much to do. It's very much based on the spirits. It's very close to shamanism, actually. Voodoo, but it is because the religion involves magical practices is how it slots into the paranormal in under the big umbrella of the paranormal anyway.
It's strange that voodoo is looked upon as very negative, when in fact actually the truth is a bit different, a lot different.
Voodoo is quite a peaceful religion, believe it or not. Again, it's the fault of mainstream media where they think it's all about sticking pins in dolls and zombies. You know, there is a lot of
Yeah,
healing and stuff involved in voodoo. It is not a negative or evil belief system in any way, shape, or form. It's actually a neutral one. Joanne says I was watching a
yeah.
live stream by John Huntington. I don't know who John Huntington is. A few years ago, and I jumped when I heard my name being called in my mum's voice. I had to re-watch it to confirm it, and yes, I did. I've had that happen where I've actually heard my names and not just spoken, but I mean shouted when I've been in a room on my own. Have you ever experienced anything like that, Sam?
No, but things are getting weird because John Huntington was interviewed in one of those documentaries that I just watched. It's it's kind of
Yeah.
weird. This, yeah, John Huntington was actually one of the paranormal investigators interviewed on Weird or What. If you want, go check it. Check some of the paranormal episodes. I can't remember which one, but he's on there. John Huntington is actually the first guy to experiment with guitar pedals, not Mr.
Hmm.
H. So that's who Mr. Huntington is, John Huntington.
James says, Brett, have you or Sam ever used a crystal ball to try and channel a spirit? I've read about a few people using the ball to do this, but it doesn't seem a common method. I have never personally channeled a spirit with a crystal ball. I suppose that's what you do with a Ouija board or with a spirit box. Um, I have always considered a crystal ball more of a divination tool rather than a channeling tool. But saying that, they are if you get a proper crystal ball made out of crystal rather than reconstructed glass, I can't see any reason why you couldn't use it as a focus. Sam?
Well, you could use it like a visual ITC, sort of like,
Hmm.
water thing, like the
Yeah.
water ITC or stuff like that. I did see somebody using some sort of app with sort of smoke behind it, which is possibly pareidolia. I wouldn't be into that
Who's
kind of thing.
mine?
But but when you think about it, if you have a crystal ball, you've got reflections from all
Hmm.
angles. You know, one of those things that you could try. There's, people are using mirrors. There is another method where you point a camera at a mirror, and that mirror is pointed on another
Yeah.
mirror. So there's a reflecting loop
Hmm.
going on, and the camera is picking this all up, and it's another form of sort of communication, experimentation sort of thing. So I can't see why not a crystal ball, which is completely round, and you get reflections from everywhere.
Yeah.
Do you
Deb
know?
says, do you think it's possible to capture a spirit with a Faraday cage? Personally, I would say no, because if you've watched any of Sam's videos, you'll see she often does spirit boxes enclosed in Faraday type devices. And if that was the case, if when they got in to communicate, they wouldn't be able to get out. So personally, I don't believe it is possible to put a spirit, energy being, or whatever in anything. To be fair with you, Sam.
People say that spirits are made up of electromagnetic
Hmm.
energy, and that's why the electromagnetic uh, detectors are going off. But there is another theory that it's not that at all, because the devices that we're using, like the K2 and all that kind of thing, are only picking up man-made electricity. That you would be better off using a static
Yeah.
meter. Um, but is energy made up of electricity? I don't know, but I don't think a Faraday cage would trap a
No, me
ghost
neither.
any more than I think spurs can be trapped in a wooden box covered in wax.
No, no,
Uh,
me either. The
um,
delightful debug box.
um, yeah, and there's these cubes made out of mirrors, and they say you can trap spirits in that. Um, I don't believe in the mirror theory either. To
Hmm.
be honest with you, I don't think there's spirits trapped in my house, because I have two mirrors facing each other right in front of me here.
For
Um,
everybody who speaks English and not Irish, Sam is actually saying mirrors, not mirrors. I'll just qualify that for
all right.
everybody.
Do you notice when the episode, the Ghost Adventures episode, when they went to visit
Yeah.
Ireland, anytime an Irish person spoke, there was subtitles and stuff.
Jack says, when I was at work, I heard my name whispered in my ear, felt the breath, turned round because of my personal space was invaded and there was no one there. I have actually had people shout and I literally mean shout my name right next to the side of my head, and there's been no one there. I don't feel any breath or anything, but and I've had that occur quite a number of times where I've actually had my name shouted and literally like somebody was bellowing right next to me. And
When you feel that breath on your ear, and you turn around and there's nobody around you for a very very long distance, actually, that is the one thing that it does give me the
mhm.
heebie-jeebies.
Have
You
you
know,
ever felt when you're doing a session, Sam? Have you ever felt like they're in the room with you watching, like standing next to you or anything?
um, no, not really. I No, because I'm constantly asking, "Are you here?"
Yeah.
And they say yeah, or sometimes they say no, or whatever.
So you've never
And
actually felt like there's been a presence there, or when you've finished, you've gone to bed and thought something's watching or anything like that.
Not really. If that did happen, that would be sort of that would be hysteria, I think.
Do you think?
Yeah. Well, I would try not to get freaked out anyway because the paranormal is not about getting freaked out and scared or anything like that. Um, but you see, we don't have proof that the spirits. You turn on the spirit box, and next thing these spirits start coming into your house. Hey, Sam's putting on the spirit box. Let's come in and have a
So you
chat.
don't think
Like,
it's
you know,
like
and
Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg, where they're all standing around in the room while she's doing it?
no, I don't know. I try to keep a logical head about it. Are they communicating to us like a radio
Hmm.
station, or are they in the room? That I don't know, but it's constantly on my mind.
Yeah.
Um, you know. That's why recently I started using the flashy bulbs and the REM pod and stuff like that. They've gone off on Rob's stream, but they haven't really gone off on mine. They went off once. So I don't know if they're in the room with me. But then again, I question why am I getting these tinglings in my hands, my arms, my
Hmm.
face, and my feet? Is that their energy affecting me? So I don't know.
James says, when I was young, and this was at a time when TV channels cut off at midnight, and the channels would just go to fuzzy static, I used to sit and see faces in them. Could that have been a kind of ITC? That was actually a very common way of doing um, ITC, believe it or not, in the 70s and very early 80s, James. If you can Google a lot of the older videos, you will find there was a lot of people at the time, who did it as an hobby, who actually did exactly that. They used, an off-air station to either record the sound or get pictures on it.
Oh yeah. Um, the older ITC, before we started using the scan radio that Frank Sumption brought into the
Hmm.
mainstream, um, some of these older researchers still stick with the same thing of using a radio on a channel that is just for government emergency, so no other channel is allowed to
Yeah.
use it, and they record that, and that is what they use. And way back in those times, the old radio, the old televisions. In fact, I think Frank Sumption had a TV screen on one of his boxes, actually, for the fuzzy sound. You got the static noise, and you've got the static visuals on that. Personally, I actually use a video loop, which you can use on a modern television. And if you have do you know an external uh, uh, uh,
Yeah.
webcam, and you put yourself on to record, say Streamlabs or your video
Hmm.
software, and then you just put your webcam recording what's on the screen. You get all these colors and stuff. It's crazy, and that's another form of ITC, which I've recently done two videos on. You know, but that's a visual form of the spirit box. It's kind of it's the same sort of
Yeah.
thing. You know.
Jackie says, just to make you feel better, apparently when Americans put Australians on the TV, they subtitle them as well. So it ain't just the Irish. Stephen says
Yeah.
he's heard his name being called a few years ago and no one was there. I used to experience it quite a lot, but it weren't a whisper. It was literally a full blown shout right next to me. Claire apparently has got a crystal ball locked in a cabinet and she's lost the key. Joanne says, I wonder if the communicators have spirit boxes on the other side to hear us. Joanne, you saying that I've brought this point up with Sam in the past. Could it be possible that some of the people we are talking to are people like us in a different dimension doing exactly the same thing. I think I mentioned it last week, didn't I, Sam? Could it be that they're sitting
Yeah,
there with their form of a spirit box, talking to us, thinking we're the ghosts? You know, to me, that could be, that could be a possible explanation. This is why I say I do not believe that every communication we get, be it via Ouija board, spirit box, you know, medium, whatever, I don't believe that every single one of them is from a dead person. I
funny
do
enough,
believe in interdimensions and alternate universes, alternate realities. Sam?
funny enough, I brought that up on a session. I says, "Can I call you spirits or
Mm-hmm.
ghosts?" Would I be offending you if I called you a spirit or ghost? I says, or am I the ghost? Do you know? I didn't get a response to that, but I did come up. I did say, or is it me that's the ghost,
Yeah.
not you? Do you know?
The thing is, Sam, that would be something interesting to include in all your sessions, and ask that question and see if you do eventually get a response to it.
Yeah, yeah. But if the parallel universe is more advanced than us, they possibly have a solution to proper communication, not just one or
Mm-hmm.
two words or a couple of words and stuff like that. Um, we'll probably look back and we'll probably in the future look back and say, remember when we used to try and talk to ghosts through radios, and all we needed to do was this. Do you know what I mean? Will we get to that stage where we just turn on something simple, and get full sentences and full
Mm-hmm.
communication? Do you know? Some people are claiming that, but I'm very skeptical of them. Where they're getting responses every time they
Yeah.
ask a
Yeah.
question, and they're getting a full sentence, and I'm going, nah. It even sounds like overlaid audio. It doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah.
You
Joanne
know.
says when we say "I spirits," they don't say "No, don't call me that." They just accept the "hi." Good point. James says James says
Yeah,
Brett, exactly the communication that comes through, maybe from living beings from other dimensions, which is one possibility, I believe, James. It doesn't mean that they are people who have passed. Totally agree. Jackie brings up another good point. We get people from the past. People from the past have seen us thinking we are ghosts. Has anyone ever got someone from the future thinking we are ghosts? Now that's a good point, Sam. Could could we be communicating with people from the future and they think we're the ghosts?
possibility, because we brought up earlier on what is time, and is time important in the spirit realm.
Mm-hmm.
Time is something that is relevant to
Yeah.
us, but in another dimension, or in the spirit world, the theory is that time isn't that
Well,
important.
the thing is, there's that physics theory that's been proven true in it, where they have actually proven that an atom can exist in two separate places at once, and they could be billions of miles, millions and billions of miles apart, and what affects the one affects the other. Could communication be something like that that's going on? Could there actually be some kind of physics theory that could explain communication at some point? Is it just is it
That
just
came
that we
up.
don't know enough about the laws of physics yet?
I've been watching that too today.
It's just
You,
freaky in it, Sam.
everything. It's on the episode. Weird or not, weird or what? Time travel, and I watched that this morning. That somebody had believed that time travel for human beings, that machine actually didn't exist, or some believe that the military and the government is hiding that. But there was some guy that said he doesn't believe that humans can time travel, but small pieces of
Yeah.
information, small tiny particles, and they can be some distance apart. So it's kind of weird that you brought
Hmm.
that one up
Yeah.
too. You know?
James Jack says Sam comes up with some really witty stuff like that. That's why I like listening to her channel. Am I the ghost? Gold. James says when we used to get cross lines on old telephones and you could hear somebody speaking, I wonder if they were spirits. Now that was just a bad telephone system. James. Mandy says when you this is quite interesting. Mandy says when you see a spirit or someone that's passed, they don't stay around to chat, yet use a pendulum or such, and communication can go on for ages. I believe a lot of the time when that happens, Mandy, is because when you see a spirit or an apparition or ghost or whatever you want to call it, that 99% of sightings are actually residual. So that's why they don't stay. They play out whatever length they need to play out, and then they peter out again. Where when you do communication, you are specifically reaching out for communication, and I think that's why it lasts longer because you're getting in touch with beings, ghosts, spirits, whatever you want to call them, who are reaching back to do exactly the same thing. Sam?
Here's one to think about. You go into town, right, and you see people walking up and down the street. What's to say that some of those people are not actually they're not actually in our frequency. They're actually
Sam,
ghosts.
I have had this
Some.
discussion with a number of people, and my response to that is you don't know. You know, we you because the one and only time I have ever seen a full body apparition, and that was when I was a teenager, when I was having the problems with the poltergeist episode, and that guy appeared above me. He was perfectly solid, and I mean, you would not have known that he wasn't a real person. The only way I knew was because he was literally floating about a foot off the ceiling, looking down on me. If he'd have been stood up, I would not have known that that guy wasn't real. He was as solid can
Yeah.
be.
Mm.
Joanne says she watches too much YouTube. But yeah, I've had that discussion about, how do we know we're not seeing ghosts every single day of our lives? And my response to that, to anybody who asks, always is, well, you don't. You've got no way of knowing one way or the other. Claire says she was the same. It was her dad, and that was it. Um, James, just been reading about the military taking a big interest in Turkey and Egypt because apparently time travel portal gates are located in these countries. And Jack says she's got no time for doomsday people. The world was supposed to end so many times. I was actually, believe it
Oh
or not,
yeah.
Sam, I was actually watching today a video on flat earthers. Uh, Honestly, some of their theories are so far off this planet, it's unbelievable. They're that far off the planet they should be able to see for themselves the world's round.
Oh, I watch a guy that takes the piss out of flat Earth
Yeah, this
theories.
one. Well, he weren't actually taking the piss out of him. It was basically a builder who was using plumb lines to say, this proves that the Earth's flat, and he'd draw the building on the side on the Earth. The only problem was the scale he'd used. This building was like thousands of kilometers wide, so the scales were totally wrong on it, and that was why his theory just went totally to pot.
Was that Simon
I
Dan
think
that
it
you were
was
looking at?
actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
He's kind of a
yeah,
scientific kind of thing, and he does a lot of debunking and stuff like that. I do
yeah.
enjoy him actually. Yeah.
Mandy says hers was a daytime vision too. Mine was actually on a morning, Mandy. You know, I don't know what Sam's opinion is on this, but I don't believe you have to be in the dark or in some creepy location to see something like that. Mine was in my bedroom, broad daylight. Nothing creepy about it whatsoever when it appeared.
Um, I don't believe that it makes any difference really. Uh, the possibility that, see, darkness has a couple of advantages for paranormal investigators. One, it's spooky, or they call
Hmm.
it spooky. Two, you can use your full spectrum cameras to more effect or
Yeah.
whatever. And three, less traffic and people are around at night time than during the daytime. So you're cutting out some of that audio that you would hear during the day. Otherwise, there's no difference really. You can pick up evidence during the day. There's no
Yeah.
you know.
You cannot stop water and it's rising a lot considering. That's what Claire's just said. Joanne B wants to know if there's portals in Antarctica too. I think Joanne's been watching too much Stargate. Do you believe, Sam? And you know, and I do think this goes on. It's alright. It's just something Claire's just said in the chat, and I do honestly believe that this goes on a lot at times in the paranormal, and I don't just mean the ghost hunting part of the paranormal. I mean the paranormal as a whole. Do you think that false memory plays a big part in a lot of sightings and claims right across the paranormal? Because I do personally.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, like false memory, and you got these theories too that are, I call it paranormal snowballing, where one person claims that this is happening to them, and then another person says, "Oh, that happened to me too," and then
Like a
before you
kind of
know it, a
Chinese whispers
load of,
type thing.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Here's an interesting
yeah.
one for you, Sam. Do you believe, and I suppose Zozo is the perfect, Zozo the bloody Desmond is the perfect example of this. Do you believe that mass hysteria can actually generate paranormal phenomena? It gets to the point where enough belief in anything will actually start generating whatever the belief is to actually start to physically manifest.
Funny you came up with that too, because yesterday I showed Rachel the scroll experiment,
Right.
where they, it all seems to be a mass gathering, and there was another experiment where they made a false ghost, and they named him and
Yeah,
everything.
that was a very famous. That was Philip. That was a really famous experiment.
Yeah, the Philip
Yeah.
experiment. So is that spirit made from the energy of those people that manifested it in their mind? I don't know. It's.
See, because
Um,
most paranormal investigators or ghost hunters are of the belief that you know spirits are comprised of energy. Well, let's be honest. Physics states that everything ultimately boils down to energy. We're all just energy. Obviously, the mind, thoughts, memories, and stuff, they are all chemical, electrochemical in nature. Can it be that by
mm,
believing enough, there's enough energy generating to make thought into reality?
yeah, that's that's an interesting one actually. Yeah. Um, who knows? Who knows? But
If we all sat
it's
here in the channel and say for the next 6 months, all in and repeat the the Philip experiment, where we all invent this fictional spirit, do you think we could get to the point where in 6 months' time you were getting messages on the spirit box of him?
there's a problem though, right? There's a guy called Dave that comes up on my box a lot, morning, noon, and night. So I'm kind of ruling out that it's a DJ of
Hmm.
some kind. I actually I've got him doing a spurt box in a moving car. I've been driving around with the spurt box on, and David's coming up and all the rest of it. The thing is, I have tried a way back to say Scooby Doo. Can you say Scooby Doo or Scooby Doo here? I stopped actually doing it, but I'd say if I'd done it enough of this, I would get that response back. The only thing is it
Yeah.
true? It's the same as the guy that went into the
Hmm.
woods and called out for Slender Man, and he just kept saying, "Is Slender Man here? Is Slender Man real?" I knew what he was
Yeah.
doing. Um, it was a bit embarrassing for him, but at the other side of it, I says, notice that he knows what he's doing because he's saying Slender Man,
Yeah.
Slender Man, Slender Man. Next thing, Slender Man came up in
Hmm.
the box, and I go, wow, you know. Um, um,
But at the time, Sam, the other thing to that as well, if you think about it, there was that big case in America with the attempted murders when he was doing that. So it was a discussion on the radios at the time. Where the belief in
all
Slender
right,
Man, they two girls had nearly murdered a third one. So, so
all right,
you do have when you do anything regarding spirit boxes, you do have to be well aware of what's on the news at the time. And we all know that people do sometimes take that to their own advantage. Monkey
yeah.
J said, yes, like the Mordecai house in an early episode of Supernatural. Can't remember what happened in that one. There was somewhere else I just saw as well, or I wanted to read out. Yeah, Claire put, you look at what Francis said about the Cottingley fairies. She's just done it on her channel. She said that she saw them in her mind and her thoughts processed them to picture. So again, that's another example of people claiming mind over matter. It is more than it is. I believe it's more than possible. I think if enough people firmly believe in something and constantly push that belief that they can actually bring it into existence, it is basically the basis of magic. James says a computer can
Yeah.
essentially hold a memory, so that there must be other materials around us which can record memories, and this could be what's being picked up a lot. Yeah, it's called a brain, James. You've got the best computer in your
Yeah,
head.
yeah, but when you think about things like quartz and
Yeah.
other rock, is there properties in that can hold memories and stuff like similar to stone tape
Yeah.
theory? Do you know?
Mandy Phillips says, "Oh, but did they say that they had made them up to protect the fairies? They have always they did admit that the actual photographs themselves were faked, Mandy, and I can't remember if they were taken off a biscuit box, which I think it was a biscuit box. They took the pictures off, but to their dying day, both of them insisted that they had actually seen fairies, but they couldn't get pictures of them. So it's one that's never going to be solved, even though the photos
Yeah,
themselves were admitted to be were finally admitted to be faked. They have always insisted to their dying day that they had actually encountered real life fairies or elementals.
I have the photographs here above my mantelpiece, and I see them every day, and they're just, do you know, fake or not, they're
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
For way back in the time, you know, when you think about it too, those photographs are taken at a time that the war was on and
Hmm.
stuff like that, and a lot of negative things were happening. And if it brought joy to the world, who cares if they fake them or not? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's a very they're very positive. I love them. You know.
There's one that's dubious, Jackie. There's one that actually looks more lifelike than the rest of them, and I don't think that one's ever been proven one way or the other. But they did say that they could not get any decent pictures of them, and that's why they faked them. But both girls, to the day they died, carried on insisting that what they claimed they had seen, they had actually seen.
Mm.
Yeah, the fifth one is actually the fifth one doesn't look like a cardboard cutout. There's transparency in the wings and stuff like that. So that is the only one that is. They've never proven that one way or the other.
It was enough to fool Arthur Conan Doyle to write a
Yep,
book about them.
certainly was.
I have the book here as well. You know,
Why do you think, Sam, that there's suddenly been a resurgence in things like interesting ghosts? Because in Victorian times, that was the height of the seances and stuff like that, and mediums and all that kind of thing. And there was a massive belief in, in the supernatural. And then, during the early 20th century, it died out and then it started to build up again mid 20th century, and now it's at a peak again. Do you believe that supernatural happenings, psychic happenings, whatever you want to call them, paranormal occurrences? Do you believe they come in waves? That there's something going on with the planet where it boosts them up every so often in cycles?
it's very difficult because you look into the past and you get all these stories that are wrote in books, and a lot of them could be hearsay
Hmm.
in that. But you don't get that activity now, even though most of our major towns and cities and most of our cars now have got
Yeah.
cameras in them. Yes, I have yet to see something that I'm convinced is paranormal in them. So it's difficult. It's a difficult one. But a lot of people say we're not actually in the paranormal season or the paranormal era. We're actually in the UFO and alien era, or
Yeah.
possibly coming out of the paranormal and into the UFO and alien
Yeah.
era. It's yeah. Um,
Joanne B says, "What do you think of pictures of mediums with all the plasma?" I was actually lucky enough in my late teens to witness um, the only ever physical medium I have ever seen, and what that woman produced in a, I won't say fully lit room, but it wasn't a dark room. It was just slightly dim lights. What that woman produced and formed, and what appeared to various people, I honestly, to this day, cannot explain how that woman did it if she was faking. I honestly cannot explain it. But they are pretty much a dead breed now, physical mediums. What's your opinion on it, Sam?
I don't really have much of an opinion, to be honest with you. You do have the genuine ones, you do have the charlatans, and it's just the same as a lot of other things in the
Yeah.
paranormal. Way back in those days too. Some of these people were actually poor, and in order to put food on the table, they had to do
Hmm.
something. And some of these people, they lost their husbands in the war or whatever, and bringing up kids, they had to think of something. So some of these may have gone into that side of things out of pure desperation and are probably not mediums at all. That would be looking at it on the negative side, I
Yeah.
suppose. But certainly one of the last mediums to be arrested for witchcraft. It came up in the scroll experiment where the newspaper reported, and there was an article in the newspaper about this medium who predicted sink ship.
Ellen Duncan, she was the last woman to be tried for
That's right.
witchcraft. What was interesting about her is
Yeah,
she was one of the last greatest physical mediums. They tried to debunk the woman by claiming she was inserting an 8 foot square piece of cloth up her vagina, which is, and then producing it in front of people, which is a little dubious. Um, Quite an interesting
Yeah, she
medium was
did.
Ellen Duncan.
Yeah, she was accused of being a spy
Yeah,
as well
because of the knowing about the
because
ships.
the ship.
I think she actually
Yeah,
predicted the sinking of two. Was it two or three? And she actually announced them to a family before the family was even informed that they'd been sank,
yeah,
before it was
yeah.
made public
It was.
knowledge. That was literally why she was
Yeah,
tried on witchcraft. They put her away because she was spilling national secrets without even realising it.
yeah,
James has put, in these times it's all about stress and money, and people have lost their faith in things. So interest in the greatest mystery ever has increased because people need to believe there's more to life. Do you think, Sam, that people's reliance on technology could be one of the reasons that paranormal, things like mediumship and stuff, has declined a lot lately? Because we're losing our natural instincts and relying more on technology.
yeah. When you think we use technology a lot of the time now in everything we do, and when you think about it, the more we use our
Pardon me.
brains, the more we use our brains, the better we become. But we're actually getting artificial intelligence to do a lot of the work for
Hmm.
us now. So what are we going to be like in the
Well,
future? To be
the thing
honest
is,
with
they
you,
say we use a very, very small amount of our actual brain capacity. Now,
well, we're using less now.
nature is never wasteful in anything. So you've got to ask yourself, what is that rest there for? What has nature, what has nature either add planned for us and we've lost, or what is nature intending to give us? Because what could humans do with another 90% of, brain function?
Well, the thing is, too, we've lost touch in what nature can
Yep.
tell us because, um, just like one of the things I seen today was this little boy uh, with his father who went camping on front of a major volcano, and the kid was
Hmm.
freaking out and he wanted the father to move. The father was a photographer and he was looking for that
Yeah.
$1 million shot. And the kid was kicking up so much of a fuss that they had to move away from the area. And lucky they did because the next day this volcano destroyed that
Yeah.
area where they were in. And it was believed that the kid had picked up on the animal instinct of what
Yeah.
nature does.
Because they do say,
Because
especially with things like earthquakes and volcanoes, that the animals flee the area before it actually happens.
yeah, the best thing to do if you see animals going crazy and going in one direction,
Follow them.
just follow
Yeah.
them because they're picking up the vibrations of nature that we
Yeah.
can't.
I
We
totally
have the
agree with you on that one,
capability of
Sam.
doing it.
Totally agree with you on that one.
Yeah, we have the capability, but we just don't use it anymore because it's not used in our everyday life. And we actually probably are less sensitive to it now because we're using computers for
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Right. Well, we've been going to just over 2 hours, so I'm going to close it for tonight because I am getting seriously parched. Um, Thank you, Sam, for coming on again tonight. Stay on when we go off because we'll have a chat again when we're finished. Really appreciate coming on, and
Yeah.
I'll love to hear your opinions. Thank you to everybody in the chat and for all the questions and your opinions because they are what make this channel. And thank you to the people who donated. It is very much appreciated. If anybody does want to come on the channel with us next week, like I say, there is a email in my about section where you can email me and come on. All you'll need to have is Skype. You don't even have to have a camera. You can just come on mic if you want to, as long as you've got a mic. But if you want to participate in a four-way experiment using different forms of communication, and you've got a particular type you want to use, do feel free to email me, and we'll get it sorted for next Friday, for Friday's stream. You okay with that, Sam?
Yeah.
Right, so I'd like to wish everybody a good night or a good day, depending on where you are, because I know we have got some of our Australian friends in here. Thank you for coming in again, and we will see you all next week. Do you want to?
Thanks very
Cheers.
much.
Thanks you all. Have a great night, everybody. Bye.
Bye.